So I've been debating exactly how to talk about this book. It's one of those plot-driven books that half the enjoyment is found in letting those pieces fall into place. Now, booktubers as a rule are pretty good about keeping things spoiler-free, which is something that the print reviewers seem to have a hard time with. It's almost like they've taken a special glee in spoiling the surprise for everybody else. Even their comparisons can spoil things for me. Telling me that it's a sci-fi usual suspects leaves me looking for Kaiser Soze everywhere. And saying it's a natural heir to Gone Girl leaves me distrusting the narrator the entire way through. Now, all this is to say that I absolutely love The Man from Primrose Lane because I went in completely blind. So Liberty Hardy, the well-read head over at Book Riot, was bored one day and decided to ask her Twitter followers to send in their 3 favorite reads, and she would come back with a recommendation. So I complied, throwing in Sweetland, Where the Air is Sweet, and Broken Monsters, and she came back with The Man from Primrose Lane. That was enough. I dropped everything, picked up the book, and dove right in. I didn't read the back piece, I didn't read the inside flaps, I went in completely blind, and I think that helped with my enjoyment of the book itself. And if you too want that same experience and you trust the emphatic recommendations of myself and Liberty Hardy, do that. Stop watching this video, go out, pick up the book. I assure you it's going to be a fantastic read. As for the rest of you, I will tell you her recommendation is based on my love of Broken Monsters. When the book opens, a notorious recluse known as the Man from Primrose Lane, or otherwise known as the Man with 1,000 Mittens, is found dead in his home. He's obviously the victim of a gut-shot wound, but what's more mysterious is someone has cut off all his fingers and thrown them into a blender. 4 years later, crime writer David Neff is enticed to come out of retirement to try and solve this cold case. He's enjoyed a high degree of success with his last book called The Serial Killer's Apprentice, but the intensive research that book required had sent him spiraling down, and now he suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. He needs to be heavily medicated so that he could be a good parent to his young son. He becomes absolutely obsessed with this particular mystery and decides to forego his medication and dive right back into the fray. From there, it is a mind-blowing, smack you upside the head, jaw-dropping, perspective-shifting, literary feat of magic. It's like this grisly roller coaster ride. Honestly, some of this stuff was a little hard to read, but it wasn't gratuitous or overdone. And I think it goes a long way to help explain how someone could get PTSD researching a topic this grim. This is one of those page-turning, can't wait to finish it reads that has me conflicted. On one hand, I want to rush through it so I can get to the end and find out what happens, but then I'm battling against this sort of need to read it slowly so I don't miss any details. And once I finished, I needed to find out more about this particular author. So, interesting fact. The Man from Primrose Lane was written by James Renner. He actually wrote a book earlier called The Serial Killer's Apprentice, and doing research for that book sent him spiraling into PTSD. He needed to be heavily medicated so that he could take care of his young son. James Renner also wrote a nonfiction book called Amy, My Search for Her Killer. This is something that had its start when he was only 11 years old, when he became obsessed with the disappearance of Amy Mihaljevic. Her Amber Alert photo was his first ever crush, and even in his teenage years, he became obsessed and began hanging out in malls, hoping to somehow find her killer. Renner is also responsible for a collection of stories called It Came from Ohio, where he collects urban myths around the state. One of those stories is about a giant, spark-emitting Loveland frog. Now, all these little details really don't seem to have a lot of relevance if you haven't read the book, but if you have, mind blown. This has the makings of becoming a cult classic. And other people seem to agree. Bradley Cooper has optioned it for a movie, and I can't wait to see this in movie format because I think it would translate brilliantly. Alright, so I probably already told you too much about the book already. I love Broken Monsters, and this is definitely a natural progression from that book. It's a little bit more grisly too. This is a mind-blowing epic. I absolutely loved it. Another super high recommendation. I know I've been going off on this thriller bent, but I can't help myself. This was just an incredible read.